It was a nail-biter for fans of Riley and St. Joe basketball. We'll tell you how it all went down.
With Clay High School closing, we'll take a nostalgic look back at the glory days of the boys' state championship basketball team.
And there's a new coach standing watch outside the Notre Dame Joyce Center. We'll give you a closer look. All this and more coming up on Sports Zone.
You're entering the SBS TV Sports Zone.
Welcome to Sports Zone, your source for all South Bend school sports. I'm Reese Kessler from Riley High School.
And I'm Isaiah Packer, also from Riley High School. Every year, sports reporters at the South Bend Tribune pick an all-area football team based on their accomplishments on the gridiron. This year, 42 players were honored for their skills and hard work. The 2023 team is a bit different than teams of the past. This year, there wasn't a fixed number of selections for each position. In other words, if the writers thought that people played well enough to be on the all-area team, they listed them. While none of the South Bend schools made it to state, several players made the team, starting with Riley Jr. Dominic Jolly as running back. As one of the Northern Indiana Conference's MVPs, he had 1,004 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns. His team finished with an 8-2 record. On the offensive line, Clay Sr. Dominic Mitchell made the cut. As a first-team All-NIC selection, Mitchell had an 88% win rate on his block attempts. He also had 30 pancakes. Also on the offensive line was Riley Sr. Marcus Henderson. He played every snap on offense this season and recorded 52 pancakes. Rounding out the line was Washington Sr. Sean Peck. He was a first-team All-NIC pick with an 85% pass block rating and 25 pancakes. This year, the newspaper staff added an additional category called multi-position players. 8 players were chosen for excelling on both sides of the ball. The sole honor given to an Adams player was for one of these multiplayer positions. Senior Braylon Williams ended the 23 season with 8 interceptions and 24 tackles. He also punted an average of 32 yards, caught 44 passes for a total of 458 yards, and made 3 touchdowns. Congratulations to our South Bend Schools football players and to all those who made the Tribune All-Area team. From Sports Zone, I'm Isaiah Packer.
The Riley Wildcats boys team have dominated swimming in South Bend for the last several years, and this year looks to be a winner too. Here's Alex Konda with all things swimming related.
Thanks, guys. Over the last 2.5 decades, the Wildcats have won 30 sectionals and occurred 7 state titles for all time. But things might be changing soon. While Riley's swim team is the smallest Coach John Van Driest has seen in all his years of coaching, there are some bright spots for the boys. The team, anchored by 4 veteran swimmers, Ignatius Ruskowski, Christopher Bartmus, Joel Khrushchev, and Patty Chapman, hopes to repeat or advance beyond their success of last year. That means winning a sectional championship and placing in the top 5 at state. The quartet will compete again in the 200-yard medley relay, while Ruskowski will take on the 100-yard backstroke and 200-yard individual medley. Chapman will compete in both the 50 and 100-yard freestyle, and Bartmus will do the 100-yard breaststroke. The lingering effects of COVID are believed to influence the gap in the larger numbers of swimmers the Wildcats once enjoyed. Over the next few years, you can bet they'll be working hard to increase their talent. The Adams Eagles are also headed back to the pool. The Lady Eagles are currently at 1-0 after their opening meet. Congratulations to the sophomore Addie Zakeli for winning the Tribune's Athlete of the Week vote. Zakeli recently took away 4 medals at the city's girls swim meet to help the Eagles win their championship. Specifically, she won the 200-yard individual medley and the 100-yard backstroke events and took 2 more wins with the 200-yard medley and 400-yard freestyle relays. And congratulations to the Washington girls for taking 3rd at the Elkhart meet last Saturday. With Christmas break right around the corner, the next meets are a few weeks off. Riley boys will be back in the pool bright and early at 9 a.m. Monday, December 29th at Highland, while the Wildcats boys and girls teams will hit the road for a meet at Washington on January 2nd at 11 a.m. And the Adams Eagles, both boys and girls, go up against Clay at home also on Monday, January 2nd at 6 p.m. That's the news from South Bend Schools Pools. I'm Alexandria Konda. Now back to the studio.
Out of wrestling, it's another victory for the Wildcat boys wrestling team. They traveled to Twin Lakes this past Saturday and took first place as they repeated back-to-back team championships. Individual winners include senior Marcus Young in the 165-pound weight class, senior Jeremiah Scales in the 175-pound weight class, and senior Justin Smith in the 215-pound weight class. At the same time, the Lady Wildcats traveled to Central Noble for their tournament, where junior Nyesha Jindelberger and Janiyah Howard earned distinction. Both teams are on their way to Warsaw this week to take on the Tigers in a non-conference matchup. Adams Eagles boys were on the road at Northwood this past weekend. Congratulations to senior Eddie Gomez, who was named Adams High School Student Athlete of the Month. While Lady Eagle Leah Lipsy, a junior, will be competing in the girls' regionals on December 30th. Over at Washington, the varsity boys team went up against New Haven, where Jalen Johnson was a notable standout. You may remember him from earlier in the season when he took first place at the Panthers' Blood, Sweat, and Tears tournament. On the girls' side, the Lady Panthers traveled up to Central Noble. Up-and-coming sophomore Janiyah Brooks placed second in the tournament. It's the final season for the Clay Canolios co-ed team as they look to compete in the Northern Indiana Conference. They have plenty of time to practice as their next tournament isn't until January 3rd, where they host the Bremen Lions.
South Bend Riley edged out a narrow 79-72 victory against St. Joe on Friday. This was a Class 4A versus 3A varsity basketball showdown. Despite Riley's commanding 30-point lead in the third quarter, St. Joe mounted a fierce comeback, narrowing the gap to just 2 points in the fourth quarter. Peyton Baird's standout performance with 28 points and Aiden Kant's 13-point contribution were pivotal in securing their Wildcats win. Improving their overall record to 6-1, it also maintains their 4-0 record in the NIC. Despite Chase Kaninsky's impressive 22 points for St. Joe, they fell short, moving to a 3-3 overall record.
John Adams had a busy week traveling to both Michigan City and neighboring South Bend school Clay. On Friday, at Clay, Adams came home with a victory 67-41. On Saturday, hopes were high, but they fell short at Michigan City 67-46, leaving them with a 4-2 record on the season. Adams girls also had a busy weekend taking on LaPorte and Clay. Adams girls took a big win against Clay heading into the weekend 36-34. Following their big win, the girls traveled to LaPorte, winning 63-43, finishing with a 7-6 record on the season.
The 22nd class of women inducted into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame has just been announced. 12 honorees made the list, including one from South Bend. Marilyn Cotton's former head coach for Washington High School made the list. She coached the Lady Panthers from 1994 to 2008, winning 5 NIC titles, 6 sectional championships, 3 regional titles, 2 semi-state titles, and a state championship in 2006 from 2007. Codens won 77% of her games while at Washington. Prior to coaching at Washington, she was the assistant coach for the 2005 McDonald's All-American Games. She graduated from LaSalle High School in 1968 and attended IUSB. She was also a math teacher from South Bend schools from 1976 to 2013. The women will be honored this spring at the end of April.
While South Bend schools have done reasonably well in area boys basketball, state championships have never been a strong suit. In fact, Mark Otterano tells us South Bend schools have only won 3 boys basketball championships in all of history.
That's right. South Bend Central won 2 titles in the 1950s before closing in 1970, and Clay High School won a boys state basketball championship in 1993-94 season. Some call it the biggest upset in Hoosier hysteria history. In the spring of 1994, the Clay Colonials boys basketball team secured a spot in the state championships. For most places, that might not seem like huge news, but in South Bend, it had been nearly 25 years since any huge high school has gotten that far. Earlier in the day, the Colonials beat New Albany 61-57 at the semifinals, which meant Clay entered the game with a 26-2 record, while Valparaiso was 28-0. That set the stage for an all-Northern Indiana State Finals showdown. The Nailon brothers, Lee, who would go on to be a future NBA star, and LeSean each picked up 2 quick fouls. The first 11 points were scored by sophomore Jerron Cornell. By the end of the first half, Clay led 37-32, but Valpo's Bryce Drew, a future Chicago Bulls standout, woke up in the second half and hit a jump shot that put the Vikings ahead. By the final quarter, Clay trailed 54-46. Every time Clay got close, Valpo would push the lead back to the double digits. With 58 seconds left in the game, Valpo led 75-67. But then Lee Nailon dunked the ball, followed by teammate Charles Bonds with the turnover and a three-pointer. Drew answered with his own free throw but missed a second. The Colonials rebounded and pushed the ball up the floor and another three-pointer. With 7 seconds to go, Valpo called a timeout to set up defense, but the Colonials weren't fazed. LeSean inbounded the ball to Lee, who passed to Cornell. With a left-handed shot, Cornell tied the game 78-78 and the end of regulation. In the first 30 seconds of overtime, 2 Viking players fouled out. Then Cornell fouled out. Yet, the Colonials displayed an unwavering determination, overcoming Valpo's sharpshooting and an 8-point deficit in the final moments of the game. With a belief in their ability to win over formidable odds, the Colonials secured a historic victory, defeating previously unbeaten and number 1 Valpo with the final of 93-88. The closure of Clay at the end of the school year adds a touching note to this achievement, and the impact of this victory makes them forever champions in our hearts. For Sports Zone, I'm Mark Gattarano. Now back to the studio.
South Bend schools have a very busy winter with upcoming matchups for all schools. The Riley boys plan to continue their 2-game winning streak into the break with matchups against Mishawaka and Mount Vernon. The girls look to find their first win in over a month playing Gary Westside and East Chicago Central.
Friday night, the Lady Eagles have a big matchup against LaPorte and will continue big games throughout the break, playing both Northwood and Portage. The boys also have some tough matchups, playing both Huntington North and East Chicago Central.
After a win on Monday, the Colonial boys plan to keep up the heat during the break with matchups against Elkhart Christian Academy and Jimtown, while the Colonial girls have a relatively quiet break with only one matchup against Jimtown.
Later tonight, the Washington boys will have a tough matchup at Northridge, while the girls have matchups over the break against Butler and Bremen.
Notre Dame's football regular season may be over, but there's still plenty to talk about. The number 16 Fighting Irish are on their way to the Sun Bowl, also known as the Tony Tiger Bowl against number 19 Oregon State. That game will be played in El Paso, Texas on December 29th. Quarterback Sam Hartman, the one-year graduate transfer from Wake Forest, opted out of the bowl game as starter for all 12 season regular games. That leaves an opening. It is something sophomore Steve Angeli is eager to fill. Notre Dame announced the news on social media with the play on the song Peanut Butter Jelly Time, changing the lyrics to Peanut Butter and Jelly, a play on the QB's last name. Xavier Watts has secured the Bronco Nagurski Trophy. It's given to the best defensive player in the NCAA. He's the first Fighting Irish player to win the award since 2012 when Manti Te'o won. Former QB Tyler Buckner might be returning to Notre Dame, but it won't be to play football. Buckner transferred to Alabama last offseason, but is back again as a lacrosse player. Inside Lacrosse is reporting that Buckner intends to return to help the National Championship Irish defend their title in 2024. In high school, Buckner was considered one of the top lacrosse players in the country. According to ESPN, he may also return to football, but is looking at lacrosse for his immediate future.
Marcus Freeman would like to keep his 2023 coaching staff, including offensive coordinator Jared Parker, in place for the 2024 season. The head football coach recently made the announcement saying, "If it's up to me, as I just told the coaching staff in our meeting, I have a strong belief in the coaches that we have in this football program and would love to have them all back." Freeman's decision harkens back to his own introduction as a defensive coordinator with Cincinnati. At the time, he had one of the worst pass defenses in the country with 31.8 points per game. He credits head coach Luke Fickell with keeping him and allowing him to grow and improve.
In a major upset, the Citadel Bulldogs dominated the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, cruising to a 65-45 victory on Tuesday night. Elijah Morgan, a former Notre Dame player, stole the spotlight, dropping a career-high 19 points, including 5 made three-pointers. This win marked the Citadel's first against a Power 5 opponent since 2021 and only their second victory over an ACC team in 44 matchups. The game had a back-and-forth first half, with Notre Dame trailing 32-29 at halftime. However, the momentum shifted in the second half, as the Citadel went on a 23-4 scoring run, securing a double-digit lead and sealing the win. J.R. Kaninsky was a bright spot for Notre Dame, recording an 18-point, 10-rebound double-double. Notre Dame aims to bounce back in their next homestand against Marist on Friday, while the Citadel enjoys a holiday break before hosting Toccoa Falls on December 30th. This surprising victory for the Citadel marks a great moment in their season, proving they can compete with any big-name teams on the road.
It's official, Notre Dame has unveiled a statue honoring Muffet McGraw. The new statue to the former legendary women's basketball coach was unveiled before the Irish's game against Purdue on December 17th. McGraw is known for building the women's basketball team into national champions. The Irish made the NCAA tournament every year from 1996 to 2020 under McGraw. That includes 6 Final Four appearances and 2 championships, one in 2001 and the second in 2018. McGraw went 848 to 252 in 33 seasons. She retired at the end of the 2019 and 2020 season.
That wraps it up for this edition of Sports Zone. I'm Reese Kissel.
And I'm Isaiah Packer. Have a great break and happy holidays, everybody.